Hey guys, welcome back for another episode of The Suited Shootist. Little bit of gear this week, little bit of concealment tips. So I inadvertently kind of took a request from the Filster Workshop on this one. There was a gentleman who had posted some photos of his, and he was asking for advice on how to improve his concealment. And the gun itself was fairly well hidden. One of the recommendations that I had made was, because he had his shirt tucked in, so his entire waistline was visible, the nylon gun belt that he was wearing was one thing that I suggested he change out. But the real tell that I saw was the fact that he had both his pepper spray and a knife clipped to the same pocket. And so that was enough of a deviation to, in my opinion, warrant further scrutiny, because that's not how most people outside of the defensive space carry those things. And my recommendation to him was, if you find yourself needing to carry multiple tools in one pocket, then that is really a prime use case for the Raven Concealment Pocket Shield. If you're unfamiliar with what the pocket shield is, it is this flexible plastic material, and you can actually cut it and trim it away if needed, and it lets you clip stuff to it. Right now I've got my Surefire Stiletto Pro and a can of Palm OC. This was developed by Chris Fry at the time of MDTS training. He now is the training director for another company in the Nevada area, the name of which escapes me. I'll see if I can kind of put it down here on the screen. Sorry, Chris. But my understanding of the backstory of this was developed when Chris was working in New York, and he was working, I believe, somewhere in the medical field where weapons of any kind were really a big no-no. And, New York and in the East Coast, even pocket knives are not necessarily as ubiquitous as they are in, the center of the U.S., the South, unless you start getting into the real agrarian parts of the state. So even a pocket clip of a pocket knife, which isn't inherently a weapon, would potentially be enough to create some unwanted social friction. And so he looked for a way to be able to still have tools consistently indexed in a pocket, but without having the clips visible. And that's where the pocket shield comes into play. Now, there's some huge benefits to it. Number one is that it allows everything to ride completely below the seam of the pocket, so nothing is immediately visible. The other big advantage is that it smooths the contours of whatever's in your pocket. And I've talked about this before, but I think it's relevant to reiterate. When it comes to pocket carry, it is more acceptable to have sort of poorly defined lumps and bumps in your pocket than it is to have lumps and bumps along the belt line, because we carry stuff in our pockets. And so there is an expectation of there being something there. And so as long as the lumps and bumps don't inherently look like a weapon, a gun specifically, because, knives and pepper spray and flashlights don't necessarily have the same immediately identifiable profile. But the point being is that it's okay to have contour or topography, for lack of a better word, in a pocket, and it's not as attention grabbing as if you have those same lumps and bumps and contours along the waistline. So, coming back to it, it allows to have the tools properly indexed. It smooths out the profile of it. And the other added benefit is, this is especially relevant once you start getting out of the territory of jeans and chinos and into the finer fabrics of dress slacks and suit trousers, where those fabrics don't really withstand the metal clips of knives and pocket flashlights and things like that all that well. And they can get shredded up pretty easily. I mean, that's why a lot of the sort of tactical clothing companies will reinforce the edges of pockets to keep that fraying at bay. Another big advantage is it actually improves the retention of these tools. Kind of the main gripe of Palm pepper spray these days is just the fact that the clip it's a plastic clip, so it can break. And so if that breakage occurs when the unit is entirely buried in the pocket, you're a little less likely to lose it than if it's clipped to the pocket. So there are some advantages there. And there was some pushback in the thread. Because again, this is situationally dependent. I'm not saying that this applies to everybody. Because, again, I'll use myself as the example. When I go and visit my family in southern Louisiana, literally everybody and their brother has at least one pocket knife, clipped to their pocket and visible. So no, that's not telling of this person may have a gun. Even here in Houston, it's still fairly common. However, it's not common to see two tools clipped in the same pocket. So that is the deviation from the norm that can either garner further scrutiny, or if somebody is sufficiently in the know, can belie the fact that you're armed. And so this is why the pocket shield can be very useful. Back when I originally started playing with the Kel-Tec as a pocket gun, I also used I bolted a sticky holster to one for better position and more consistent index before I discovered the mica holsters. So it has a lot of real benefit. The trade-offs is your pocket does need to be sufficiently large and deep for it to fit. You can trim it to fit, so that's another factor. And it really sort of your imagination is the only limit to this, because I know Caleb Causey over at Lone Star Medics is known, especially when he winds up having to dress more formally, he will put like a tourniquet and maybe a compression bandage or some quick clot gauze and use some shock cord to secure those to a pocket shield. Cecil Birch over at Immediate Action Combatives has done a few posts, and he highlights how he likes to attach blades to the pocket shield for when he is, or was, I guess, in his previous profession in business attire, but still wanted to be suitably equipped. It is an incredibly versatile tool, and I definitely think that it's worth having a couple of them because they're not particularly expensive. Just because they're worth playing with, and they can give you a little bit more flexibility and afford you a higher level of discretion without that really sacrificing any access. So hopefully this gives you a little bit of insight into why I like the pocket shield, why I still have it as part of my, not everyday carry, but it's a, excuse the phrase, tool in the toolbox for when that niche situation arises, that it gives me a little bit more flexibility. Let me know what you think. Have you used them? How have you found them useful? Do you have questions on it? And this is the first time you're hearing about it. Put that down in the comments as well. Other than that, hope everybody has a fantastic week. Stay dangerous and stay sharp.